Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me David the Smiley cosplayer. So welcome to the show because I'm excited.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm a big Static the Shock fan. I love Miles Morales. You've done a bunch of cool Marvel stuff, and we're going to get into all of that. But before we get into all of that, I am curious how you got into cosplay because everybody has a unique story, and every cosplayer is a little bit different, I feel.
Well, like my story, I feel like isn't super like crazy. For me, it was literally that I didn't get to experience Halloween enough as a kid, and so I was like, when I finally got into college, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to do these like superhero characters because these are ones I like. And I was looking at like the stores and online and I couldn't find anything that I wanted. So I was like, well, I really want to go as this character, but how do I do it? So I actually, for my very first cosplay, I actually had someone help me make that one, and that's how it all got started.
So let's actually talk about that because I'm a strong believer that cosplay is for people who want to make their costumes, people who buy their costumes, people who do a combination of both. Because I think it's supposed to be costume play. I think it's supposed to be enjoyable. And so, what was that like? Because having somebody make and help you make your cosplay is still a challenge to some degree because you have to make it fit your body, you have to make sure it works. So, what was that experience like really building it out and even purchasing it and making it all come together because that is sort of part of the fun, I think.
It's a learning experience. And so like for me, like I actually sat there and I was like learning how to like use a sewing machine, how to like kind of do the cuts for different material. And so that was like, and also adding like different things too. So it's not just a suit, you might want to have wings or like, well, for this case, it was wings because my very first cosplay was Batman Beyond. And so, yes, that one. And so with that one, I was just like, okay, how do I like kind of piece this together? Because I couldn't find that mask anywhere. So I actually had to kind of find different things to like piece it together. And it's like, okay, this is like the cosplay, like all put together, and it looks exactly like it.
Yeah, us talk about that first one because I love Batman Beyond, and I'm 30, so I grew up watching Batman Beyond. I grew up watching Static Shock. I grew up, watching the Teen Titans, and I love all of this because I'm a huge sort of WB Kids guy. I think Batman Beyond came on before Toonami or during Toonami at some point, and Brave and the Bold was on too. And so, what was this like really building out Batman Beyond? And Will Friedle is just such a great voice actor and such a nice human being.
For me, it was just like a wow, I'm actually Batman. Like I'm like this is the Batman character that he's honestly the best Batman in my opinion. Like I don't really care for Damian Wayne, like, and believe you me, like Bruce Wayne, top of the line, like the Batman, top of the line. But as far as like my whole like Terry McGinnis, like I love that the whole like future setting, the whole this is a very younger guy. Like, say for instance, if Dick Grayson were to take up the mantle at that point in time, that could have been Batman as well. But there wasn't that. This is a completely different story. So I really enjoyed it. And people who saw me in that costume actually enjoyed it a lot as well. And so I was like, oh, I didn't think people would understand or like know who this character was. But I'm like, well, awesome. I'm glad.
So let's talk about this, and I'm assuming you're young enough that I don't think it's offensive, but hopefully I think you're around my age because I'm 30, and I don't know how old you are, but this is sort of our Batman to some degree.
Well, if I'm being honest with you, technically I'm older than you
No, hopefully not by much.
by 1 year. Like I know like the pictures and everything, like you can't really tell or like with my energy and whatnot, but no, I'm actually 31. I was born in 1991.
But this is our Batman. I mean, this is our Batman. There's no question about it. Where this is the first time like a new Batman character was introduced, and it's obviously got a cyberpunk theme to it to some degree before cyberpunk was cool in a lot of ways. And so what is that like? Because I think for me, and I don't know how you feel about this, and even for I guess younger cosplayers, it's nice to see something that is from our generation and not something that's been around for 80 years. Not saying that Batman's outdated, because I love Batman, but that is what I feel makes this cosplay great in a lot of ways, more so than just doing traditional Batman.
For me, it's more like it's more the nostalgia. Like I love growing up with these characters, and so that was like the biggest thing is just being able to cosplay as these characters, and also like people our age, or for some folks like that are a little above our age or like a little under our age, they still recognize who the character is. And so for me, I'm just like, this is like this is truly what I want. Like this is what I want to be like recognized as a character, but at the same time, like me just having fun as the character. And so like cultural wise, like it was great. It was a great experience to have this for us again, like a whole new story and dealing with like a bunch of different like kind of like enemies, like nothing that actual Bruce Wayne has gone through before.
Yeah, no, and then even going back into this cosplay, I mean, obviously, it seemed like it was a positive experience for the first one. And what was that like? Because that also, I think, helped in a lot of ways what you do. And even as a cosplayer, is that when you come out of the gate and your first cosplay is successful and people like it, that is a really good thing and it's encouraging. And encouragement is a big deal in anything. And, obviously I run a business, and when people encourage you, it is extremely helpful. So what was that like? Because I think that must have been nice too, is that people recognized the character, it was put well together, people were excited to see it and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was. And also like I heard you. Your voice is a little robotic right now, but I did hear you. So no,
Sorry,
like
sorry.
no, it's okay, it's okay. Being able to like just be people encouraging you as a character, like that was a lot because I didn't expect it. And it's fun. That's what makes it like the most like fun is it like people like, hey, keep doing this because we don't see this. As I get a lot of that when I'm static, when I dress up in my static cosplay. They're like, "Can you please like?" Actually, the first year I went to a convention, people were like, "Can you come back as static like the entire weekend because we don't see this like often." And these are again like people that are like in between, that are like above my age, like a little under my age. Like they're like, "We don't see this character often." And it would be great to see this character like all weekend because no one's doing this character. No one has ever like brought him around to the different conventions that they've been to. They're just like, hey, like we see this guy like every once in a while, but no one realized how impactful it was. And so even going back to Batman Beyond, like he was our like in a way teenage superhero, like teenage superheroes like in the late 90s, early 2000s were like a thing, like they were on the rise. And so having like a full teenage Batman in high school dealing with the issues and also having to be Batman himself, like that was like really great to see. Like having a teenage superhero is like one of the best things, honestly.
Yeah. Let's dive into Static as well, because I love Static. I love Static from the Teen Titans. I love Static in Static Shock. I love Static as a character, and this is your Static. And I know that you just were Static at, I think, Comic Palooza down in Texas, and I know you did a panel, and that was cool. And I saw parts of it where you put up on the internet. And so, what's the story behind Static? Because I think Static is a very important character. I thought the show dealt with real issues. There's a whole episode that dealt with gun violence, also being a metahuman, coming into adulthood, how to be, a superhero and be responsible. Obviously Virgil dealt with the death of his mother and that, and also a lot of other things. And so what was this like? Because he is a very complicated character in a lot of ways and is a very good representation character, I feel.
You're right. Well, again, one of the reasons I cosplay Static, again, one of my like all-time favorites. All time, like Golden Boy, top of the line. That's just that. Like that's gonna be like me ecstatic. But now I will say this is that when it comes to the character Static, like starting out, it was mostly a way for Black characters to be in comics. Because, and this is, I also mentioned this in the presentation I was giving, is that a lot of these characters couldn't get on with like these mainstream comic book companies. So, like DC and Marvel, they couldn't get on because that wasn't the market that was wanted back then. And so it's just like, okay, you have this character here, but he's not marketable. So you're not going to put him in here. And it took like a group of actual, like a diverse group that started the Milestone Media Comics. And that's how you get Static and like a bunch of different characters in the Dakotaverse, which that's a whole deep dive in itself. But that's how all of that started. And that was more of the representation for the characters and the cultural representation for Black people in general. Because if you looked at how some of the characters were drawn, portrayed, you could tell that like a lot of it was taken from one point in time and they didn't move past that. They were just like, okay, this is just the way we're going to have this character, and that's it. And Static was like the one character that didn't necessarily break the mold, but he definitely like he walked so some of these other heroes could run. And like again, as they talk about the gun violence, being raised by a single dad in a middle class family, like all of that, those like actual things that happen within that series and the comics that brought a reality to like, hey, this character is going through this, but also I go through this on not just a daily struggle, but every once in a while because no one's talking about it, no one's bringing it to light, but it still keeps happening.
Because what I enjoyed about it, and this is just my perspective, is that it did it in a way that I think that children understood, and I think it did it in a way that it didn't, I guess, preach it. It educated it, if that makes any sense. And I don't know how to say that any other way, where it really presented it in just such a clean way that it just eased a viewer into it, and then everybody's like, "Oh, I get it," and that it hit upon a point and it really added depth to Static and Virgil. And I've had discussions where you look at Miles Morales, and I know you cosplay him, and I look at Static and Virgil as having a character who has way more depth than Miles does. And I think it's so much more significant. And it's a very interesting character. And then even when you look at him with the Teen Titans later on, potentially a few years later, and obviously I'm a big comic guy, and even how he has been abducted and he doesn't want to go home because he doesn't feel like the hero he once was. And it kind of plays off that. And it's just he's such an interesting character in so many ways. And I love seeing Statics, and I want to see more of them because I remember seeing the show and it was an awesome fucking show, to say the least.
Oh yeah, like just that no, that's a complete understatement. And no, I if I had to choose between Miles and Static as far as like which one was more in depth, it was definitely Virgil. It was definitely Static for sure. Because like, yes, like Miles did like have his whole like he grew up and he actually had like a pretty decent life. Like he had his whole thing with like had both his parents and uncle, even though his uncle was kind of much, he was a whole villain. But the thing is that Virgil didn't really have all that. Like he had his sister, he had his dad, and he went through his own things. And there was even a point with the bullying and gang violence, which you don't see much of that like talked about in comics. It's just like, oh, you have this gang here, you have this gang here, but this one superhero is going to like stop these two rival gangs from fighting. Not that like, hey, we're going to offer you protection because we see what's going on with you. And unfortunately, that is what happens in Black communities. And again, it brings the realism of this character to life. Like, hey, someone is actually going through this, but no one's actually talking about it.
Yeah, no, I just love the show, and I'm looking to buy a first appearance of Static. It's an expensive comic. It's a hard one to find. I have an Ultimate Fallout 4 though.
Mm.
So I mean, I do love both those characters, and obviously, I mean, I'm thrilled that you're actually cosplaying Static. So I really appreciate that because it's awesome, dude. It's just awesome. Look, I don't know how to say that any other way, and I do appreciate it. Um, but I do want to dive out of Static for a little bit at the very least and talk about a
I
few
do.
more that you've done. I love Static a lot, but I also love Doctor Fate. And I had a professor who wrote Doctor Fate back, a few years ago. Paul Levitz did, and so I have a very special place for Doctor Fate. I love what he does. I actually love him in the New 52 more than anything else. And so, what was this like? Because I think this is very early as well.
All right. So I want to say this was going into year 3 of cosplay for me. Because again, we're pretty much the same age. If you've seen The Incredibles, no capes. This is the first year I actually got to wear a cape. And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna wear a cape. And I like feel that like Dr. Fate is one of the most underrated heroes out there. And yes, he is all about balance. And so that's why people kind of like sideline him, because he'll sit there and he's like, hey, like, I see what's going on and I'm not going to do anything, even though I can do something about it. I'm not going to do anything about it because it's going to upset the balance of everything. And I don't want to do that. I'm all about order. But cosplaying as Fate was actually like really fun. Again, that was the first year I got to wear a cape. And I was just like, you know what? This is actually really cool. And I got to play that character. The only thing is, I wish I had a mic so people could like hear the Dr. Fate voice and give it that whole like full on like look like, hey, I'm possessed by Fate, but this is like you're hearing the spirit like of Fate himself. And that was like really, really fun to cosplay. And I wish I got more pictures in it, honestly, because I've worn that one like maybe 3 times. And I want to bring it back because I want to add some additional stuff to it.
Yeah, what is this like? Because Doctor Fate is sort of a step removed from, I guess, the mainstream in DC. And I don't think many people cosplay Dr. Fate. And so, what is that like for you at a con? And when you wear it, because you might be the only one there, but people know who Dr. Fate is. And I would imagine it's kind of fun to be a little bit off the beaten path and not be what everybody else is doing. Because a lot of times there's a million Batmans, there's a million Harley Quinns, there could be a lot of Green Lanterns, there could be a lot of Supermans, but if you're the only Dr. Fate, it's kind of cool, I would imagine. Same thing with Static to some degree, possibly also Batman Beyond. And so, what is that like? Because I like to be different. And I would imagine that you like to be unique. And it's kind of, I don't want to say attention, but you stand out, is a good way to put it.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I
You can
as of recent,
challenge me anytime you want.
so as of recent, I'm gonna say this. I've actually seen Dr. Fate cosplayers like at conventions. I really have. Like last year and this year, I went to Comic Palooza here in Houston, and I saw Dr. Fate cosplayers, and I'm like, huh, I didn't think he actually got love like that. And with the Black Adam movie coming out, I was like, oh, now we're getting some Dr. Fate love. I'm like, finally, they're actually gonna like do this character some justice. But like I say, as terms of like going as characters that not many people go as, Static is like the number one. I actually went to Comic Palooza this year and I dressed as Shuri from Wakanda Forever, and I really didn't see anyone else like that. It was like maybe two other people, and one person had like the comic version of it, and I did the Wakanda Forever version for it. But a lot of people, when they see you like that, they're like, "Oh my god!" can I get a photo with you? And that's what makes it fun to me. It's like it's really fun, and you become a part of the convention itself. Like you're not just like a bystander, you're actually a part of the convention.
Yeah, what is that like? Because I'm not a cosplayer. I cosplayed once, and it's not my jam. This was maybe 10, 12 years ago. Um, and it's not my thing. I appreciate cosplay. I interview cosplayers, and I appreciate the art form, but I don't want to be in costume. I like presenting. I like being just normal. I like being a civilian. But what is that like when people recognize you from afar and you bring the character to life? Because at this stage, I feel in pop culture, when we get to see characters, we get to touch characters, we get to play with characters, when there's action figures and pop Funkos, it brings it into the real world. And I think cosplay in many ways does that too. So what is that like for you? Because it's an important part, I feel, to the whole ecosystem of pop culture right now.
Well, for me, honestly, and this is kind of like part of my name, is that it brings a smile to people's faces when they actually get to see these characters in person. Because it's like, hey, I grew up watching you. Hey, like I read your comics like growing up. And these are reactions I've actually gotten from people when I go to like the conventions, or if they see me in public, they're like, oh my God, like you're that character from the show that was really influential to me when I was younger. And to get that response from them, it's really nice because you feel like you touched a part of them like in their heart. And to get, like say, to get it, it's just it touches you because you're like, wow, I didn't think something that I like, something that I wouldn't have considered to be like this really great thing, is something so many people love to see, and it brings them joy. And like I say, that's again part of like what I like to do, is like I like to bring the joy, I like to bring the happiness to people, especially when I'm in cosplay, because it it's a whole, you see that light, you see that spark.
Yeah, no, 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 no. I haven't been to a con in a while, but I love seeing certain cosplays, and I love seeing things that are off the beaten path. Like my favorite thing seeing at a con is usually dinosaurs, because they are the best thing ever. When somebody has an inflatable dinosaur, and I love it. I love it. And I just think it's funny, and so that's why I love it. But I know what you mean, where it's just certain things just bring back amazing memories to people, and you can trigger something in somebody that, oh man, I remember that show when I was a kid, and it just brings like something. You can see it on their face, right? Like you can see when somebody's genuinely happy. But I digress right there. I want to talk a little bit about a few things off the beaten path outside of anime and pop culture. Actually, we're going to talk about anime in 1 second before we get to your Marvel stuff. And so I like this one right here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love it. I
It's
love it.
okay.
I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's Easter oriented. I love it. I love it. I also enjoy your Deku, where I like that one as well, in which that's very cool. And then there's the Narnia one that's pretty cool too, because I haven't seen a Narnia cosplay ever. So you're the first Narnia one that I've seen ever. So that's pretty cool. And then I forgot about this movie completely. So
Lana.
that's a great movie in so many ways. So what's the story behind the Joanna Man cosplay? Because that is brilliant, and I have never seen that before. And it gave me a good laugh for like a good 10 minutes. I'm not gonna lie. And then I spent the next 30 minutes looking up clips from that movie. And we all know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm gonna rent that movie. So you're to blame.
Okay, okay. So first and foremost, let me tell you this. I okay, let me backtrack a lot. So when it comes to the cosplays that you literally just like shown, even though the Easter one actually wasn't like a full cosplay, but it technically is. I want to say this first and foremost, but yeah, especially this one, the Easter one. that one is more of like a Sailor Bunny kind of deal. The only thing you didn't see is the weapons, which are just like two neon pink fans. Like those are the weapons. So it's giving you like a Sailor Moon and Kitana like vibe, like just off of that. But when it comes to the Narnia and it comes to like the characters like Joanna Man, like for that right there. So when I started, this happened about 2 years ago. A friend of mine was literally like, I had did an interview in Static, and so a friend of mine was like, "Okay, you did Static as a new one already, but you got to do something else." And I'm like, I don't have anything else. Like, I don't have anything on the list that I can like hurry up and do for Halloween. And they're like, you know what? Do a drag look for cosplay, like for a Halloween look. And I'm like, you know what? I've never done that before, so I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna say the first character that came in mind, and I was obsessed with, there still am, is Hela. That was like the whole, like it was a big obsession with her. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna cosplay as Hela from Thor Ragnarok. And I had a friend do my makeup, and since then I've been doing my own makeup. So I did a drag one. So that was the first time I did drag. The one from Narnia was the first time I did a gender bend, which it's Tilda Swinton, so it's not really gender bending, but that was the first time I did that kind of Narnia cosplay, and no one's seen it. It was actually for a kind of work event, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna win this work Halloween I mean this work winter costume contest, but I am actually just gonna do a full cosplay. And I walked in as that, and everyone's jaws dropped on the floor when they seen it, because they're like, they've never seen anyone like kind of go all out like this. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it actually, I bought the coat, and I actually got like everything that you see on there. Everything else, I kind of did that myself. So those spikes are just supposed to be like icicles. So I literally bought cones, and you can't see it from the back, but I have like two more back there. So I have like six total, plus the scepter. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna paint these like a kind of Christmas color, so like white, half white, and then half like sky blue, so it gives like that kind of snow icy feel, and it still comes off of the original look of the character. And then I'm like, all right, so kind of give it like this kind of boyish look. So give it like a suit instead of a dress. Have like a tie, and then just walk around like those icicles are like coming out of like snow. And that's kind of on the point with the whole character in Narnia, like Jadis, the evil witch. It's coming off of like that Ice Queen, Ice King like vibe. And full circle to Joanna Man, I was bored, honestly. I was just bored, and I wanted something different to do. I wanted something that like no one has never seen. No one has ever seen me do. No one would ever think I would do it, because I do a lot of superheroes. I do a lot of like heroed characters like Marvel, DC. That's what I stick with. So I'm like, let me step out of that and let me do something that no one would have ever thought I would have done. And Joanna Man came up, and I was just like, oh, this is going to just make everyone laugh. They're gonna like have a full fit. No one will ever like think of me doing this character ever. And I did Joanna Man. So that's how I got to Joanna Man. It's just like I wanted something that like no one would ever have guessed I would have pulled off. And I also wanted to broaden my horizons, honestly. Just give me more artistic, like just give me more like the space to like be more artistic, like do something else, do something different.
I mean, I love it. I love it. I thought it was funny. It brought up some funny and good memories. And as I stated, we know what I'm doing this weekend. So you're to blame. There might have to be somebody in my life who has to suffer with me. I mean, enjoy it with me. No, it's a brilliant cosplay because I've never seen that, and I totally forgot that movie even existed. And then, oh man, the clips from that movie, oh, they're brilliant. It's so good. It's so good in so many ways. It really is a brilliant cosplay. I'm excited for when you bring it out. I really am. Because I think you'll have a good time at a con in that cosplay. I really do.
Oh yeah. No, I if I bring that out, I know everyone's going to be like dying laughing to begin with. They're just gonna like die laughing. And that's what I want because when I see that movie, when I think of that movie, I just think of pure comedy. I'm like, you know what? I need something to laugh at. I need like a comfort movie. Joanna Man's that movie. And I'm like, here's the other thing too, is that like, what about all these movies, all these characters that we like grew up watching in like the early 2000s, the like late 90s? Like, what about these characters? Like, no one's ever like doing anything. No one's bringing this stuff out. So why can't it be me?
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. And speaking about bringing characters out, this is another character that you brought out. And Chris
Yep,
Tucker played this character, right?
correct.
So some Fifth Element, I think, right? Bruce Willis, Chris Tucker,
Yep.
Armageddon's coming. What is he? A taxi driver in that movie? It's been a while since I've seen it. It's a great movie, but it's been a while, and that's another fun character that I feel like that one is I think still a little bit more relevant. But what was this like? Because that's a fun character to play and cosplay.
Whew. Okay, so Ruby Rod, first and foremost. I'm gonna say that character is a lot. I mean, that character is like full energy. I have to be not on 10, I have to be on 15, 20 the entire time. And I didn't realize that because I was like, people kept suggesting that one to me. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll bite. I'll finally get the costume. Like, I'll do it just to see. And when I walked out as that character at like a couple of like local events, actually, no, I went to like a Halloween event and people lost it. But I will say, because I do have like a small acting background, like I did memorize like most of those lines just because of like the leopard print suit that he did in that scene. I memorized like pretty much most of it. I can still do all of it, but the important part is the introduction when he comes in.
Yeah, and so what is this like? Because between Joanna Man, obviously Ruby Rod, and a few others, I mean, those are really recognizable characters. People know them instantly. They connect, and some of your superhero stuff. And what is that like? Because when you connect with somebody and you see that it brings back memories. I mean, that's what cosplay is supposed to be. And I know your name's David the Smiley, and if you want to make people smile and have a good time, I mean it's kind of you're hitting your objective and it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah. Again, like say cosplaying as that character, it's a lot of fun. If I have to basically I have to be a diva, but at the same time, I also like just kind of have to like have a good time as that character because that's what people want to see. They want to see the show. They want to see Ruby Rod. Um, and again, like yeah, I am hitting my goal is like bringing the smile to people's faces when they see me as these characters. And the funny thing is though, is that I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Didn't realize I was giving that nostalgia factor at first. Like all it was just like it was just something I was doing, something to like kind of pass over time for like Halloween or whatever. And now I'm doing this more often than just Halloween. I'm like going to events, like trying to go to events like mostly year round, and it's fun. And it's nice to be recognized as each of these characters because, as you said yourself, it brings back like those happy, good memories for folks. And so I've had people that remember me as Ruby Rod years ago. I actually haven't put that costume on in about 6-ish years now. Um, but people still recognize that character. Now, there are a lot of people that recognize me as Static, a lot of folks that recognize me as Miles, Juana, especially. Um, a lot of folks recognize me as these different characters because of just the impact it had on them and how happy it it brought them, like just the happiness it brought them. And I think that was like that's the best part of it, is that seeing the happiness that a character brings a person, and you being able to like be like that person in real life, like from the attitude, the movements, the walk, like even the mannerisms, the voice, like all of that. Like it brings that nostalgia factor that brings a smile to their face. And yes, I am hitting my mark, which I am very glad I am, because I'm not going to lie to you. I literally just came up with my cosplay name, and like coming up with names is hard. Like names are like very hard for me. So I was like, and people kept asking me, it's like, so what's your stage name? What's your like name? And I'm like, I don't have one. And I kept thinking, I'm like, I want it to represent me, but I also want it to represent an aspect of me. And to be quite honest with you, I got the inspiration of my cosplay name from the My Hero series, like with Deku and All Might, because they always have a smile on their face. And one of the most notable features about me that people say all the time is my smile. And I realize that I do also bring a smile to people. So why not have my first name and Smiley at the end? That's kind of how I like pulled off to that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. But I do want to talk about, before we get to the Marvel stuff, what I think is your most badass cosplay. And it's this one.
Um, okay,
This one looks like you're giving zero fucks and you're about to fuck some shit up. That's what it looks like. I'm letting you know right now. Like, whether that's the intention or not. I mean, you got the book out, you got some magic going on, and do you want to play? Is the answer here. That's why I say this is your most badass cosplay.
so I'm not gonna lie to you on that one. That actually wasn't a cosplay. I was actually working with the photographer, and so we were just kind of like playing around with stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Let me do this pose. Let me pretend like, let me have the book open and let me pretend like magic is like pouring out of it. And this is also what got me into editing some of my photos and giving those like special effects, like the powers with it. And that's kind of how that one in particular came about, which don't get me wrong, like that is actually my favorite like thing, like
Cool
magical
stuff.
librarian is what I call that. That is actually one of my like most favorite things, is that like ah it's take Harry Potter and the Magicians, take those two like those books, those like movie television series, take those two, mash it together. That's what I like felt with that.
It's a cool shot. It really is. It's just an awesome, awesome pose and shot, and I think it's great. And that's why I say it's your most badass cosplay, because it looks that way. And you should just walk around in a con with the book like that. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to have something like that. And actually, I'm probably gonna make a prop like that anyway. So I'm just like walking around as this like badass librarian, and it's like, who said librarians can't be badass? And just all the magic spells.
You should make it so the book, when you open the book, it like pops out. Oh, that would be so sick. And then you should figure out how to light it up. Like have a switch on the back of the book. Oh, you're gonna freak some like kid out. And it's like the kid's gonna be like, it's gonna
Honestly,
be great.
honestly, I'd probably like I'd have it like of just a kind of good medium sized book, and then have it to where there's a fan going, so it looks like the flames are just moving, and have like some kind of fabric or something with like lights. If I could, some like smoke with it, but for the most part, just like the fan, the lights, and the flames would be more than enough to just kind of strike fear.
I could probably introduce you to somebody who could help you out with that.
Oh, okay. That no, that works. That totally works.
He's very good at what he does. and he only has a few cosplays. He did a Storm. It's a Darian Turner, and he did a Green Lantern light up with the baseball bat. So he's a Green Lantern corpse member who just carries around like a light up baseball bat, and that's great. And then he did like a Storm with the mohawk, and he has smoke coming out of like it. Oh, it's great. I'll introduce you to him. He's fantastic. He'll give you some help. I'll give you some tutorials and things like that for sure. But I do want to talk about the Marvel stuff since I did just mention the X-Men, and we did mention Miles already. And no, I did not see the movie yet. I'm going to. It's this weekend or next weekend. I don't know which weekend I'm seeing it yet, but it looks good. I heard it was great. I heard it was
Oh,
great.
it is. It's phenomenal. You're gonna love the soundtrack for sure.
I almost did buy part of the song from that soundtrack that Nicki Minaj was on, but that's not the point.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. It was like 20K for some of the rights for that. I think it would have been worth it. I think it would have been worth it. La Familia, I think is the song. But I digress. I haven't told anybody that. I was looking at it. It's on like royaltymusic.com. It's great. But super cool. So what is the story? Because this one's awesome with the spider webs around it. And then I like this one too. And so what is that like to do Miles? Because I have an Ultimate Fallout 4. I thought the first one was fantastic. Haven't seen the second one, heard good things about it. And I heard we're getting a live action.
Okay, so I've heard that too. I saw an article about that we're gonna get a live action. But on cosplaying Miles, like that is kind of like cosplaying Static almost. And it's actually really fun to cosplay Miles because Static doesn't do a lot of movements, but it also gives me the chance to like kind of showcase my movements because I've wanted to do a Spider-Man cosplay, and like Spider-Man Unlimited was like definitely one of my favorites for sure. But seeing Miles, I'm like, you know what? I could actually do that a lot easier. And I kind of like, and I like the suit. I really do. And I still might get that Spider-Man Unlimited suit just because. But the whole being Miles, it's definitely fun. And it's again, it gives like the kids like a smile on their faces because like Miles is kind of new to some of the kids. Like some may not see the comics, they've only seen like the animated series when he was in Ultimate Spider-Man, and they've only seen the movies. So to kind of see like this character like brought to life and someone that like is a little real to him. And it's like, hey, you look exactly like Miles. It's like, yeah, I know. Like, I'm a superhero from times and I'm a teenager. So you do some of that, but it's really fun to like see the kids like kind of light up. And I have three different Miles suits now. So the first one that you show that was from the Into the Spider Verse movie. That was from the first one with the web on it. And then the second one where I'm just kind of playing around, and that was with the photographer. That is the PS5 one because it still looked like the classic one, but it was also really cool too. And then I just well actually just fitted the Across the Spider Verse one, the one where it's just like mostly black and has like the red streak on the side. Um, that one was actually really nice, and the whole vibe from that movie, I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad that I have this cosplay and that I can cosplay this character because it's a very popular character and people are liking him more and more and more. And just to think that he is another standalone character at this point, like it's just him. And I do love the standalone characters a lot. Static was like that until his best friend Gear. And Miles is kind of like that. But again, with the whole Spider Verse thing right now, is that he still has his friends. And that's definitely what's important, is that he's not alone.
Yeah, let's actually talk about this because what I like about Miles and Into the Spider Verse, and obviously, I forget the first movie. It was Into the Spider Verse, and then Across the Spider Verse, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's animated and it's kind of a cooler vibe. Where I enjoyed Tom Holland as Spider Man, I thought he did a great job, and I enjoyed those movies. but it's nice to get that, animated bright colors, neon colors into it from what I've seen of the trailer. And it's kind of nice to get that alternative and get, the comedy in there. And what I think Spider-Man is, because to me, Spider-Man is all of us, because we look at Peter Parker and we look at Miles, they're both relatively average. You look at a character like Batman, you look at a character, I mean, Superman is actually a restrained character if you really think about it, because he could wipe out humanity in a blink of an eye and be done with it. But he chooses not to. But those are not relatable. And I feel like Spider-Man, both of them are very relatable. And what is that like? Because it's kind of cool to cosplay a character that's relatable. I mean, to contrast that with Harley Quinn is not relatable in any format, in reality. I love Harley Quinn, don't get me wrong, but she's not a relatable character.
No, I can agree with that. Harley Quinn isn't exactly relatable. Like you would have some issues if you were really, really relatable to Harley
That's
Quinn.
not very
And
nice about me. Why are you saying that? How dare you?
I'm just saying in general, but as far as like Miles and Peter, like, no, they're very relatable because you're seeing a teen. And again, like I grew up with the Spider-Man animated series. So you saw Peter Parker like kind of struggling with his at-home life, his trying to make sure he hides this part of him from people he cares about or just like everyone in general because he doesn't want anybody to get hurt. And that's very relatable because deep down, like we don't want anyone to get hurt. Yes, humans can be crap sometimes, but we don't want anyone to feel hurt. We want everyone to just like be happy, be like, hey, I get to go home and I get to see everyone. And like I say, with Miles and Peter, it's relatable because they're just they're trying to like make sure everyone else gets that feeling, that same joy that they have about life, even though you mostly only see it when they're Spider-Man. But in terms of Peter Parker or Miles Morales, like you see it sometimes and you don't see it. And it just depends on who they're with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I just love Spider-Man, and it's also cool because it's super popular right now. And that's the other thing too that I would imagine for you is that it's nice to do the offbeat characters, but then do a super popular character. That obviously the movie came out. I know that you were just at a con. I don't know if you were Miles anytime during this convention. You were just at Comic Palooza, but it must be a lot of fun because there's probably a bunch of Miles walking around and there's a bunch of Spider-Mans walking around. Then it's kind of a cool thing when you're like, oh, you're Spider-Man too. And then obviously the movie came out and everybody's Spider-Man. Oh, it's great. It's just so many things could happen.
I was so the Spider-Man are actually like really, really quick to for me to get in. So I was Miles on Friday. I had to like work that Friday. So I'm like, as soon as I get off, I'm like gonna go home and I'm gonna get dressed as Miles, and then I'm going straight to this convention. So and that was mostly just because I needed to get my badges early because I had to go and give the presentation on Saturday, and I went ecstatic. But I went as Miles on Friday because I was just like, this is a very light cosplay. Like it's popular still, and again, you're right. I do kind of like a lot of the offbeat characters, a lot of the characters that like people don't see or like don't talk about often. That's mostly where kind of all of it started is you have Batman Beyond. Like people like him, but not a lot of people know who he is. Same with Doctor Fate. Some people like him, but not everyone knows how like powerful this like non-mainstream character is. And in a way, Static and Miles are kind of like that too. But now people are starting to like see like how awesome these characters are. And it's not just about Superman, Batman, Wolverine, Mystique, Jennifer Lawrence Mystique, but that's a completely different monster. Uh, I'm for real. That's a completely different monster.
No hard feelings. Don't worry. No hard feelings.
I
You walked
only
right into it. You walked right into it. I'm sorry.
look here. I live for one live action Mystique, and that is Rebecca Romagen. because that was the best live action Mystique of all time. That was like full on comic book Mystique. That was Mystique. That was my live action Mystique. But that's just me. I can't say about everyone else, but that's just me. I don't know about you, but that's just me.
I'm a big Jennifer Lawrence fan. That's the problem, is that I'm a big Jennifer Lawrence fan. I think she was Katniss, right, in Hunger Games.
Yep.
I mean, she was great in what was it, American Hustle? She was great in that. She was great in Silver Linings Playlist. Oh my God, that's like a guilty pleasure movie for me. Um, but Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro, and Jennifer Lawrence. Oh my gosh, like how can you go wrong? How could you go wrong? But I love her. I love her as an actress. She's great. But I could see your point. I will acknowledge your point. I promise.
She
But
does good.
I like her as Mystique, but I also just like her. So I'm just.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed like the first three X-Men movies beyond First Class. I mean, I thought Mystique was fun in there too. I thought there was some good stuff in those movies. I mean, X3 was a little rough.
I can't lie. Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, like that was also the one time we actually got to see Storm do something.
It's so true. That's the problem. It's so true.
It was the one time we actually got to see a lot of Storm action scenes, like how she could utilize her powers. And it's like, you mean to tell me that like y'all are just now realizing what she can do instead of just like going sparky spark spark spark. And but at the same time, you do have to realize this, that a lot of the movies, like the first two movies within that Fox series, is that she was in very confined spaces. So there wasn't much that could be done. But in the second movie, she did do a powerhouse move with the tornadoes and everything to stop the fighter jets. Like, yes, you could have done that, but why didn't you do that to get the X jet out of the ice to help do that instead of just like Jean being like hit with the water? Could have easily done that, but I
Yeah.
digress.
I mean, look, I thoroughly enjoyed X2. I thought X2 was better than X1.
It
I
was.
thought but I'll be very honest. I thought Days of Future Past was the best out of the bunch.
It was good. No, Days of Future Past was actually very good. Again, I'm still not on the whole Mystique being a hero ship. I'm really, really not. But I will say Days of Future Past was actually good because you got to see both like everyone united, like the Brotherhood and the X-Men.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it because I thought it was a gigantic allegory. Because that's what the X-Men are. I mean, I'll ask you. I mean, did you read X-Men Civil War?
No, I did not read X-Men Civil
Oh,
War.
you gotta read it. I mean, Civil War and Marvel is arguably Marvel's best product they've ever made, like the core of it. But then you get Civil War Black Panther, you get Civil War Punisher, and then you get Civil War the X Men. And basically, the X Men basically said, "Fuck this. We're gonna go have our own island." Deadpool winds up joining them, and with Cable, and they basically say, "If you're gonna come after us and make us go to war, we're persecuted enough. Fuck this." And they basically move everything to their own island, and basically any threat comes to their island, they just knock it out. It's great.
Mm.
It's so good. It's so good because it's so relevant. It's so relevant. Civil War, everything in Civil War is perfect for Marvel.
Now I will definitely have to like look into that one for sure. And that's just because like I'm not gonna lie to you. I grew up DC. I grew up predominantly DC. I
Me
love
too.
both. I do love both, but I grew up predominantly DC, and that's where most of my love is for sure. But
I'm
seeing
I'm I'm hoping you read Blackest Night. Did you not read Blackest Night? Like Green Lantern Blackest Night?
I'm gonna say this. This with cosplaying especially, this is what I couldn't do as a kid. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it at that. Because the comics and everything, I would have loved that, but this is what I couldn't do as a kid. So I didn't get to read comics like that. But I'm gonna tell you this: I do research. I do a lot of research.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough. There's only two things you need to read in DC and Marvel right now: Civil War and Blackest Night. Because Blackest Night was right before they reset everything with New 52, and it's like an all-out war in DC. It's amazing, and it's like the Green Lantern Corps, and like you have zombified Superman, and they have it's so good. It's so good. And Civil War is basically the whole theory of Civil War is you have to register as a superhero. Your powers, and it's Captain America versus Iron Man. So Captain America Civil War was the basis for that graphic novel, but the graphic novel is so much better. So much better. And I'm not going to tell you what happens because I don't want to ruin it for you, but you'll be
you know,
sad at the end of issue 7.
so I did kind of like see into some of that actually. So again, like the whole basis, like you had to register and everything. Cap wasn't for it, and so like they had a bunch of different heroes. There was a lot, and there was at one point, like toward the end, like some null void or something like that, some void that like everyone got sucked into, right?
In Civil War, I
There's a
don't I don't think that was in Civil War. That might have been in Fear Itself.
okay, so I'm thinking of something
I
else
don't I
actually.
don't want to ruin the end of Civil War for you. Because if I ruin it for you, you will not be happy. I promise you.
All right, I'm gonna look into that actually.
You're gonna shoot me a message on Instagram and be like, "I'm so sad now. How did this happen? This is terrible." But I don't want to tell you what happened because it's so good. It's so good. But there is one scene in there where I'll give you a picture of it where Captain America punches Iron Man. It is the greatest punch in all of comics. But I digress. We should probably talk about Emma Frost instead.
Oh, yes,
This
that
is
one.
a little spicy on the X-Men.
Yes, yes. Definitely the only spicy like cosplay I have for yeah, definitely the only one. I'm gonna leave it at that because I'm gonna tell you this, Emma Frost, that's my girl, and like the reason I did that one again, it was a challenge. It was a gender bend version, so I was like, okay, how do I like make Emma Frost a sexy guy that isn't just so cliche? And here's the deal. Um, Emma Frost really doesn't wear a lot of clothing. I mean, like
No, she would never.
at all. And so I'm like, how do I look like a hoe, but not like a hoe? So I was like, okay, you know what? Let me look into some things. Like let me look into the choker, the arm sleeves, like let me look into some stuff. And I'm gonna say this. The version that I went with was from a video game. And I played this video game religiously on GameCube. And this was X-Men Legends. And I'm sure you've heard of it. All right, so you follow. Now, I liked her load screen a lot because I was just like, now that's a bad bitch right there. Like just the whole look she gave the and I'm like, dang, I really, really like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to I was like, I really like it so much. I'm gonna cosplay that just because, and then I'm just gonna be spicy with it. So why not? Just have fun. That's how that cosplay in particular came about because I wanted to be spicy and I wanted to bring out Emma Frost. I wanted to be like, you know what? Y'all can't tell me nothing. I can turn in a diamond and I'm psychic. What now?
Greg Horn would be proud. Is my official response to you. That is my official response. Greg Horn is known for drawing Emma Frost, so he draws a very very good Emma Frost. And his comic covers of Emma Frost go for good money on eBay. So that's how I know that. He does a really good job. He's known for that. Um, But I have no comment beyond that, and I will plead the fifth for the remainder of the Emma Frost section of this interview. But I do want to talk about another one because this is, I still think X-Men, right?
Yes, that's Jubilee. And that was actually really fun to do. That was probably the first time I got my makeup to look like I had wanted it. Like I was like, oh, I was like literally playing around with my face for like 2 hours nonstop. And I'm like, oh wait, like give it like this kind of, because that's a drag look for me. And so I'm like, give it this Jubilee, and it's a different version of her. Again, this version is from the same game, X-Men Legends, because she had like the crop top look and like the short yellow jacket, not like the long yellow jacket and everything. And so I was like, I want to play around with this. I want something that I can like play around that's like really fun. And that's Jubilee in a nutshell. And that's what I really like about Jubilee. She's like this very, she's a kid. She's like one of the youngest ones, but she's a powerhouse too. And so, like I said, I did the makeup and I was like, I don't have my props for this, but let me do a couple of like edits, like with the powers, so that way it gives like this Jubilee like look. Give it like a pose, give like this, because she's not serious all the time. The only thing I didn't want to do is the bubble gum, because she does have bubble gum sometimes. But the glasses were the tricky part. I will not lie about that.
Oh, not that one. This one. This one. We don't want to go spicy. Yeah, those glasses look pretty sick. And then this is the character that I probably know the least about, and I think it's Polaris.
Yeah.
Polaris. And
And
so,
so,
what is this? Magneto's second daughter.
yes, that one.
I know the least about this one. And I'm somewhat out of the loop. I think this is the same character, just different shot. And so you could probably educate me a lot more on this. But obviously, I don't know if it's drag, a gender bend, but what's the whole story behind that one? And again, I am shooting in the dark here on this character.
All right. So, of the ones that you've seen so far, Hela, Polaris, Jubilee are, oh, and technically Joanna Man too. But of the Marvel ones, Hela, Jubilee, Polaris are all drag looks. The two green, that's like literally the same. If you see that green wig, that is the same Polaris look, just a different shot, different angle. And I like the second one a lot better because it was reminiscent to the comparison shot that I got of like her in the comic. Now, what I'll say is this, is that Polaris is Magneto's second daughter. However, she's not like Wanda. She's more like Magneto himself. The difference is that she manipulates magnetic fields. So she'll manipulate a magnetic field, gravitational field, electrical field. That's her thing, is fields. And so she can like just instantly do it, change the gravity, change like all of that, the magnetic field, the electric field. She can change all of that and still kind of like have similar powers to Magneto. She has the ability to fly as well. So like Magneto does, she can do that too. The only difference is that like her hair is just naturally green like that because there was like an accident that had happened, and so that was the bringing out of her powers. And so that's why her hair is like completely just green. The only difference is that that was a last minute cosplay for me because I was supposed to do a completely different one. I wasn't supposed to, and I wasn't supposed to do that drag look. And I was like, you know what? What's something I can like quickly do? Even again, a lot of people might not get it, but it's something that I could like pull off easy. And somehow Polaris just came up, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do Polaris. Let me find a way to get this costume together in like a short period of time. And surprisingly, I did. And that's why I kind of went with like the different makeups and everything with the eye kind of makeup. Because Jubilee inspired that with the glitter eyeshadow. And so I just kind of took it out a little bit and I'm like, okay, let's do like two shadows, like this kind of lighter green and then like this green eyeshadow to give like this full look. Because I didn't have the headpiece at the time. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it this way. And it's still, they're actually people that recognize the character, but at the same time couldn't recognize me because I was in full drag. And they're like, I'm like, "Oh, hey, y'all, what's up?" And they're like, who are you?" And I'm like, "It's David."
See, that's the problem is that you should have found out what people really think about you while they didn't know who you were. See, you ruined the whole thing, and now you don't know what people think about you. Missed opportunity. No, no, all jokes aside, what was this like really though, putting together a cosplay really quickly? Because I think that's a real skill to be able to do that. And I know some people are fast builders, some people are slow builders, but what is that like saying, well, I'm supposed to do this and can I even get this thing done for a shoot or for a con or for an event? Because there is an art to doing that and it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it looks pretty good from what I can see on those photos, but I'm not a cosplay expert here by any stretch of the imagination. But what what is that like? Because I think it is something that's interesting. This isn't the first time you put together something very quickly. I feel.
So actually, that was like the very first time that I put it together like that quick. I was like, oh my God, like this is like I ordered a costume and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like do this costume. Like this is imported in, so I already know that like it's gonna take time. And I'm like, oh, it's not coming. They refunded me my money. So I'm like, quickly think of something that I could like hurry up and like get in and like piece it together. And so for that one, that was the very first time I had ever done that. I am very picky. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a Libra. It's a very, very bad trait of mine, but I want stuff to look a certain way. And even if I'm like doing it as a last minute thing, I still want it to give off that look and appeal as the character. Everyone may not get it or understand who they are, but I'm just like, I know exactly who I'm cosplaying, and that's really all that matters. So for the quick looks, I'm like, I just throw this together, it's whatever. But no, that was definitely the first time. And I was definitely nervous about walking out of my door in that cosplay because I'm like, oh my God, I look horrible. But then everyone was like, you look so great. And I'm like, well, thank you. Even though you don't know who the character is, thank you for saying I look great because I thought I looked a complete mess when I walked out of my door that day.
So let's actually talk about this as well because I'm extremely picky on my show, where I'm paying the bills for this show. I'm paying for a lot of different components in my business and what I do, and I used to be a lot less picky. And somebody said to me and there was something about comics that when you mortgage your house to do this, you get to make the rules. And when I put my StreamYard and a bunch of other stuff related to the show on my charge card, I get to make the rules. So I pick and choose who's on my show. And what is that like for you as a cosplayer saying, look, I'm going to put money into my cosplays. I'm the one wearing it. I'm the one who's going to spend time doing this. So I want to pick and what characters I want, and I want to do it my way. Because I think that's a very important thing that people sometimes do not understand that it's your cosplay. It's not my cosplay. It's not our cosplay. It's yours.
Right. So when it comes to that, like I really am just like, this is what I like. This is what I want to cosplay. And I don't care who doesn't like it. No one's gonna like you 100%. That's just life in itself. So when it comes to me being picky about cosplays, like I'm like, okay, I know I can pull this off as this look, as this gender, or like in drag or in a gender bend kind of like style. Like I know I can pull this off. And I know like a bit about the character, so I can easily pull it off. And regardless of people saying like, hey, you can't do that because of this or that, I'm just like, did you pay for this? No. Did you put in the time and effort to research the character? No. You didn't do anything regarding my cosplays, my decisions, or the money that was spent. So that being said, no one can tell me what to do. I am picky about my cosplay because I want to find something that I know I can fit comfortably and I can give off that image to people.
Yeah, no, 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 no. I mean, look, as I say it really nicely. If you want to tell me who I can and can't interview, pony up money and then we'll talk. The
Yep.
second somebody ponies up money, they get a say in how this runs. And that's how I view it. And you know, it's usually people don't pony up money, and there we go. So that's perfectly fine with me. Um, and that's something that I just think it is what it is. But I want to back out of this one, and I want to talk about one more. And I showed it before, but sure.
Okay. So that one actually
Well,
was
that's it. I don't want an explanation now. Continue.
no, no. Okay. So again, that was another cosplay that was suggested to me. And this was like years ago. This is back when the first Black Panther movie came out. And so I thought about doing her first look from the first movie. I'm like, okay. And I looked into like the comic accurate one and I was just like, I kind of don't like it, but I like it. And then when I saw Wakanda Forever, I'm like, this I like. This I can get behind. And a lot of people, to my surprise, really, really liked it. I actually had a comparison shot of myself and the leader, right? And so that's usually how I base my cosplays on, especially when I have to do makeup, is like I need a comparison of how the actor or how the character looked and how I want to look when I'm in this cosplay. And so speaking of which, Lolita was very tomboy presenting in the movie because when she put on the Black Panther suit, she had braids in. And I was like, if I have in braids, I'm just gonna look like a guy with makeup on and boobs. I don't want that. I want to give that full illusion that I'm the character. So, how do I do that? What style of hair did she have in the movie? And that's how I have like the kind of curly hair up top, but like the sides are kind of buzzed pixie cut. Um, that's how I ended up doing that. And I thoroughly enjoy being this character because again, it's a very kind of empowering character for some people. And to me, it's a lot of fun and it's still just a continuation of the live action series with Chadwick Boseman and how that impacted people so much, like his death in particular. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this character that like everyone. Some people may not like her, some people do, but I want this character because I like her a lot. And you see her growth within that movie, but as a also like as a character in the comics, she also has growth as well. And I'm like, I like this. And I like how they made it very high tech with the movie. So I'm like, okay, I really, really like how she did it with her suit because in a way, she cosplayed and made that suit her own. Because in the first movie, it has like the little hand blasters. That note right there, some people might not notice it, but like that's one thing that she had is that she had those blasters in the Wakanda Forever in the first movie and in the Infinity War and Endgame movies, she had those blasters because that is her style of attack. Yeah, she changed up a bit once she got the herb, but that is her style of attack is using those blasters. And so I can say I enjoy cosplaying Shuri a lot. Like, and I actually went to the convention, Comic Palooza, in that one, and so many people liked that cosplay. And I didn't think a lot of people. I was actually nervous to go in drag to a convention. That was the first time I had ever done that. And the fact that so many people loved it, they were like, "Excuse me, miss, excuse me, ma'am, can my daughter, can like my kids, like, can they get a photo with you?" And I'm just like, "Sure, but here's the deal. I also had to switch my voice up too." And when I said I had to switch my voice, I had to switch my voice to the accent Lolita had in the movie. And it was actually really fun because I had to practice it. So if I'm Shuri, it's gonna sound like this. Greetings, I am Shuri, the Queen of Wakanda and the Black Panther. So very nice to meet you. Sounds like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not that talented.
Now I had to get into the voice acting. I can act, as a character all the time. I can do acting, but doing the voices of a character just brings a certain like cherry on top, and it it like it just makes it explode. It makes everything just like times 10 what it already is. But I enjoyed cosplaying as Shuri, and I enjoyed going around as Shuri that entire day. I actually got to meet the girl that played Ironheart, Dominique Thorne, and she loved it. And I was just like, thank you so much. And oh yeah, well, I guess I should backtrack a little bit. The special guests that they had from that movie were Tenok and Dominique. So Namor and Ironheart. And I was just like, if I don't cosplay as Shuri at this event, while these two are here, I am going to lose my mind. And I did. And again, people fell in love. I actually got my photo featured on the official Houston Comic Palooza page, like the social medias, where I was just a Shuri and I did like a whole pose. And I didn't know about it. Some friends of mine had to tell me. They're like, "You know you're on like the website, right? Like the social media." I'm like, "Wait, what?" They're like, "Yes." And they showed me and I'm like, "One of my cosplays got on here. Oh crap." I was shocked completely. And funny story, there's a girl that I had met. She was a comic accurate Shuri. So she was a comic book version, I was the movie version. So you had two versions standing next to each other. And so I bumped into her and she was like, "Do you know you're on the social media?" And I'm like, "Yeah, someone else told me." And I didn't know at first until because I couldn't check my phone. I had the gloves on. I couldn't check. I had to like pose for pictures every time. So I was just like, I couldn't check. I wasn't checking. It wasn't a thought, but people loved it and the kids loved it. And I think that was the most important thing is that the kids loved it, the people loved it. Like everyone of all ages loved that cosplay. And here I am, I was questioning it because I was like, do I think people, especially living in Texas, where like there's this whole like conservative thing about drag and whatnot, I'm like, would people at this event actually like it if I went as this character? And all of the like thoughts, all of like the negative, like the cons that I had were literally outweighed by far by the pros of me showing up.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that because obviously, I mean, cosplay is complicated.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna get a bit controversial here. I had Colleen cosplays and she has a disability and she's very much an advocate about disabled cosplayers. And there's a big issue right now, both paid cosplayers, I guess professional cosplayers, normal cosplayers, people are just doing it because they want to do it, people are trying to do it, and there's a lot of quote unquote, I guess, discrimination across the board in cosplay. And what is that like? Because you seem to have a very inclusive experience, but I know people who've had horrible experiences as cosplayers, both big and small. And what is that like? Because it seems that this con was very inclusive to what you were doing with several of your cosplays. And that's kind of a big issue I feel in cosplay right now is inclusivity.
Yeah, I want to say that like that was definitely the biggest thing is that I didn't know if people would like it, like being inclusive because I again, I'll cosplay as different characters. Sometimes I'll go to conventions as these characters, sometimes I won't. But it's just a matter of like it's like cosplay is cosplay. Like you can be you no matter what or how the character is. And I think that's important because that's a lot of people feel that they can't be a character. Like honestly, me being Batman Beyond for and actually this is a little backstory too. For a while, I didn't think I could be all of these different characters. So when it came to like Batman Beyond, Doctor Fate, even Red X, the characters where you're hidden behind a mask, I was like, I'm more comfortable like this. because I know deep down someone's gonna be like, hey, that character isn't a black guy. Or it's like this character's white or this character's Asian, but it's like I really enjoy this character, so why would it matter? That was most of not what I dealt with. Personally, I never dealt with that because I've always come in cosplays that people like. Granted, some of which they may not know the name, but they still like the character. They still like what I'm doing. They still like the energy, the vibe that I'm giving off as a cosplayer. And so that's surprisingly why I haven't. And I actually don't even consider myself a professional cosplayer. I'm literally just having fun and being able to bring that joy out to the world is definitely something that I enjoy the most.
I mean, I'm a big proponent. I got no problem saying this. I think the word professional cosplayer is an extremely toxic word. I actually think it creates more division than more unity. And I've been a big proponent where I think it's actually one of the worst things that's ever happened in cosplay is that division. Because what it basically says is that if I enjoy cosplay and I'm having a good time with it, I am not at the level of somebody who is a guest there getting paid 20 grand to be there, despite me putting in the same effort, work, and having a good time, and that you're dismissing my effort. It's okay to say I get paid for my cosplay, but I think the word professional cosplayer is extremely toxic. I also think it has also become very much a trigger because there's certain things that these professional cosplayers do that borders on other things that we could say are spicy. And again, I understand what I'm saying is controversial, but I don't think it's as controversial as people make it seem. But that's just my opinion on it. And I think people have forgotten that this is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be, a money grabbing activity, which I feel to some circles it's become that. But I think it's a real problem. I think what you're doing is actually really, really healthy.
Thank you. I want to say like, yeah, the thing is this is like cosplay is expensive and what I continuously tell people is that I don't want my hobby to become a job. I don't want to sit there and have to like make money just to do these cosplays. It's like I set a budget year round, and even though I blow through the budget, happen like more and more, I like blow through the budget. There are times that, especially because when Halloween comes around, I'll be like Gru from the Minions, and I'll be like, in terms of money, we have no money. That'll be me, like just to myself in the mirror. But I still find a way to like pull off a cosplay. But as far as like kind of being a professional cosplayer and like some of that, like it's subjective because you can say professional, but your level of professionalism doesn't extend past you looking a certain way. And that could also mean you having a team of people helping you look this way and just having a person like catch you at the correct angles with the correct lighting. And
I'll throw you something that's crazier. So a lot of these people have OnlyFans, Patreons, right? What we could get away from the word professional cosplayer for a second, and we could say they are professional content creators. And there gets a point where if you have to produce 3, 4, 5 sets a month for your Patreon, I mean, that's all you're doing. I mean, is this really what makes you happy? Is this why you got into it, right? I speak to a lot of people in comics, and when somebody gets to the stage of saying, now, man, my comic is a business, and what I'm doing, that I run a publishing company and I enjoy my job, but it's a job, right? I have a 9 to 5 job. That is not my hobby. In any stretch of the imagination, this is more my hobby. Now, I have other hobbies too, like playing video games. I do not want to be a video game developer. It would ruin it for me. I like watching anime. I do not want to voice act. I made a conscious decision. And I think that's where people, because I don't know, I don't want to mention any top cosplayers, but I don't know how happy they are. Because to me, they can't be as happy as when they first got into cosplay. If you have to create so much content every single day, that every time you go on a trip to Japan, you're shooting, are you really enjoying your trip, or are you there because you got to create content so that your audience can enjoy that content and you're now in a content trap? And that's what I think. And that's not what I want to be. And I don't know if that's what you want to be, but that doesn't seem any good way to live life.
I think so. Content creators, influencers, today's influencers are kind of the same. And I'll probably catch a lot of flack for this. Like, I don't really, it doesn't matter to me. I don't really believe in the term like content influencer. And that's just because like you do the same thing over and over and over. It's just something that isn't creative. It's just something that's to keep you above water, to like make you mainstream, but with no substance to it. So your boat is literally only able to like float in a pond, but you have this other person who is putting in their like heart and soul trying to sail on the ocean. If
So
that's
wait,
like,
you're probably not going to get flack for it. I guarantee you, more people probably agree with you than not on that. I guarantee you, because what it is that I think a lot of people are terrified to speak up, because a lot of people have similar thoughts. And what happens, and this is what started happening to me, is I started speaking up about stuff. And a lot of people said, "You got a point here. I'm kind of with you on certain points." And all of a sudden, 15 people are with you, start to attack all 15 of them. But I digress. I digress on that. I do want to back out of all of this before you and me both get in trouble and get canceled. At any point, I mean, if you come on my show, everything's fair game, and they've been trying to cancel me for years, and it hasn't worked. And I don't think it's going to work in the next 10 anyway. I'm still here. I'll be here for the next 40 years doing this same show every week. But I do want to talk about the industry and where you think it's going, because before I let you get out of here and self promote yourself, and I am very curious because you're not new, but you're now starting to get attention, and you've been doing this for a while. I think what, around 8 years, 7, 8 years now.
going on 8 years. This October will make 8 years now.
So you're a
Um,
veteran. You're not new. You're a veteran in this.
I
Um,
I'm gonna say this. I mostly do it for myself. People like to see it when I do go out. But I really haven't been going to cons and events like that because I hadn't had the opportunity. When I started cosplaying, I was in college, and so I could only do like so much with the schedule. And then I was like, after graduation, I'm like, okay, still kind of like trying to catch my bearings with like being out of college, like having a decent sleep schedule now, uh, just a job and not having like six other classes to like go to. Like, that's what I was doing like after college. And then honestly, COVID hit, and I was just like, well, great, I can't go to any cons for a while. So I've just been recently going to the conventions, and yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm a beginner. I'm a beginner at the conventions, but if you want to say like I'm a little seasoned when it comes to like growing as a cosplayer, like seeing where I was and like learning from like, hey, what can I do better is this? Like I can do this better, I can do that better, like I can add these different elements and bring like a full vibe to the cosplay game. And like I say, that's just me. I don't know about anybody else, but I honestly, as far as like the industry goes of cosplayers, I think it's half and half. Like with everything now, with like the social media content, like being like the number one way to get your name out there, being like the content creators, like all of that, I think it's half and half because you have half the people that want to do that, and then you have the other half that are just there to have fun. But you also have to keep in mind one thing, and this is something that I recently realized is that there are going to be people, no matter what age group, that you as a cosplayer will be influencing, or that you will like, they'll be looking up to you as a cosplayer, as a creative, because they're not, they see someone like that, but it's like, oh, you're all the way in another state, or you're over in this state, and like they can have someone in their state, and it's like I finally have someone that has the whole creative mindset of me, that likes these characters that it's me, and they pull off these characters so well. But it doesn't matter if they have like 1,000 followers, like 1,000,000, or just 700. It's all about who you're reaching, and you don't know how far your reach goes to.
Oh,
So I think,
that is very true. That is very true. Believe me, there have been people who have reached weird people because of me, and I don't have a large following, but I also happen to know a lot of interesting people, and the people who watch my show sometimes have certain connections, and I introduced somebody who is sort of making a movie because of me. So there you go. I somebody watched my show who kind of contact with them, and I was in the middle because they saw my show. So pretty cool. When somebody's producing a movie on like $200,000 as like an indie film because some director watched my show and then saw that and like, oh man, I want to work on that. There you go. But so I definitely agree with everything you just said because you never know who's watching, you never know who you're influencing, for sure. Sorry to cut you off.
no, it's all good. Like I say, it's just, and also interact with people. Like some cosplayers or some people don't like to interact with folks. I do, because you never know what that interaction will bring that person. That's kind of how I know like about some of my followers, and like kind of like what they do, age range and all that. And I'm just kind of like, oh, well, now I know that like my age, my audience has been going in different directions. It's younger than me and older than me, because people are seeing these characters that they've never seen anyone do before, and that they just would like to do, or that's inspired them to like finally like do that character, but they've never seen anyone else do it, and they're just like, hey, that could be me one day. Something that we all have like said when we were growing up younger as a kid. It was like, hey, I could be that firefighter, I could be the doctor, I could be like just the technician, all of that. And you never know who you reach out to, but do know you're reaching out to someone, and that brings them like some kind of hope, like some kind of happiness and joy. And it's good to have that in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And trust me, I'm sure that I've influenced hopefully people in the right direction. I hope, but hopefully, we'll find out soon enough when there's a whole generation of podcasters coming up like me. That'll give me great pleasure. They can push me out to sea. It'll be great. It'll be great. They'll just all send me on a Vikings funeral out to sea. It'll be great. Um, Nothing would give me more pleasure than like 100 of them just being like, it's time to go, Andrew. We're kicking you out. You trained us well, and we're putting you out. They'll be like, it's okay, old man. Your time to go out. It'll be fine. And then Charles Barkley will pick Aisha, and then I'll come back for Jason Tatum. But that's not the point here. I'm sorry, it's basketball season. It's just terrible. But I digress. I do want to give you a chance to self promote yourself. Where could people find you, bother you, hit you up, check out your Instagram, all that fun stuff?
Well, hey there, everybody. My name is David the Smiley. You can find me on Instagram as David the Smiley Cosplayer. I also have Facebook. It's just David the Smiley. You can also find me on YouTube as well. I actually will be giving some different videos on representation in comics, and just kind of chatting like every once in a while, just seeing like what people's reactions are, and also showing some cosplay there too. And oh, and TikTok is also David the Smiley as well.
Well, obviously, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to keep saying it. You have to support what you love, who you want to see more of, who you want to succeed. And what that means is that obviously, if they have PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, any other thing, a Patreon, anything of that nature, anything of that, you should support them because obviously money is extremely helpful. But even going beyond that, people have social medias. Obviously, David just listed all of his social medias. And so you should go check that stuff out because that is also super important in many ways to go check out. And that's how you support people both economically and on social media because it does make a huge difference. And I can't reiterate that enough. And since this is my show, I'm going to obviously promote myself here. I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. On YouTube, I have almost 600 interviews at this point, and the list is growing. Now, I cannot promise you will get smarter by watching me, but I can ensure you that you will be at least entertained to some degree. I have interviewed everybody in every sector, whether that's a cosplayer, professional wrestler, somebody in cryptocurrencies, obviously models, voice actors, comic writers, artists, publishers, you name it, they've been on my show, and it's just continuing to grow. And so there's an interview for you on my YouTube channel, completely free. You got to search it, but I guarantee you that you will be entertained in some fashion or not. But I digress right there. Enough about me because I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh,
Don't blow it.
well,
Don't blow it.
well, everyone, I just want to say I hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Andrew, for inviting me on. And I really do hope that in the future that people that are like watching this, you guys can get some kind of inspiration. And I do hope this brings a smile to your face because again, cosplaying brings a smile to my face.
Well, I think that's been one of the best endings that I've ever had. And that is a wrap, everybody.